Good morning, everybody. Today's lesson 180. It's a summary lesson. I'm going to jump into it in about 2 minutes, maybe even a little less. Let's say 60 seconds. There we go. We're getting there. One little step at a time. One little audio issue over here. Let's see. Dum, da, dum. Oh, that's much better. All right.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Sana. And everybody down below, Daniel and Morgan, welcome. We're going to start in in a moment. The music. Yeah, don't worry. I can't hear the music. You do?
All right. Well, I think this is about as good as we're going to get it. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Oh. Well, we've got the chat room open, so if you can't hear me, maybe you can type into the chat. But it seems like everybody else up here can hear me and hear some music. It's beautiful flower sounds. All right, today's lesson. Oh, no, I don't have the Zoom stuff working. Some mornings I'm smoother than other mornings. This morning, I was smooth earlier and then I tripped.
Morning.
There we go. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hi, Tom.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right. Well, today we have lesson 180. It's the last of the summary lessons, the last 10 days or so. We've been summarizing the previous 20 days. And so this is the last of those. It's lesson 169. By grace I live, by grace I am released. And lesson 170. There is no cruelty in God and none in me. God is but love, and therefore so am I. By grace I live, by grace I am released. God is but love, and therefore so am I. There's no cruelty in God, and none in me. God is but love, and therefore so am I. The general instructions for all of these lessons, these last 170 through 180, is a review of lessons in the prior. Lesson 180 is a review of lessons 169 and 170. We will begin and end each session with the theme behind this review lesson, which is God is but love, and therefore so am I. The central idea from lesson 169 is, by grace I live, by grace I am released. Consider how this lesson clarifies and enhances the theme that God is but love, and therefore so am I. Next, we'll review the central theme from Lesson 170, which is, there's no cruelty in God and none in me. How does this lesson clarify and enhance the theme that God is but love, and therefore so am I? Remember to end your session by repeating the general theme that God is but love, and therefore so am I. Throughout your day, remember the words, but go beyond the words. Share the experience of being that love, and you will create a great day for yourself and for your world. All right, that's our main reading. And just before we were hopping on the lesson, I threw out the idea that I would read Lesson 169's notes, because I love this lesson. And then I thought maybe we could do a meditation with this same lesson. And we didn't have a lot of time to discuss it, but Tom, if you've got something that you'd prefer to do, I'm still open. Just was proposing that as an idea.
Well, why don't you just go ahead and wing it? That's fine with me.
All right, I got two wings. I'm gonna fly.
Okay. All right. We got birds around here too.
Can you hear my birds?
Not right now, but I certainly heard them before.
All right, fantastic. That sounds like a good plan to me. Oh, never did that part. There we go. Now everybody's in the right box. All right. So, Lesson 169, by grace I live, by grace I'm released. And these are the notes from that lesson. Understanding A Course in Miracles from the book, Understanding A Course in Miracles Workbook Lessons, Tom wrote. By grace I live, by grace I'm released. Lesson 169 defines two key terms with which we need to become familiar. The first term is grace. Anyone who has a religious background should be familiar with the term grace. Grace has not been mentioned much throughout this course, and how it's defined will provide a few surprises. The second term is a word that's been used often throughout this course. The term is oneness. Grace is defined as the acceptance of the love of God within a world of seeming hate and fear. Grace is an aspect of God's love that is most like the state prevailing in the unity of truth. Grace presents a state opposite to our ego world. Sorry, I accidentally hit the button there, I think. Jumped 5 pages ahead. Okay. Grace presents a state opposite to our egoic world of provisional reality and its numerous fearful experiences. When experienced, the state of grace is so prevalent that you can no longer believe that the egoic world of hate and fear is real. Grace is not learned. By having an open mind, you realize that you do not know everything, and therefore you're willing to challenge what your ego says your fear-based experiences would teach. It's the gift of grace that the Holy Spirit utilizes to reframe our experiences to align with the truth. It's interesting to note that grace is defined as the acceptance of the love of God within the world of seeming hate and fear. Grace is always present because it is an aspect of the love of God. Yet we must accept the gift of grace to realize that we possess it. Another interesting caveat is the idea that we accept God's love in a seeming world of hate and fear. This reference to a seeming world of hate and fear reflects the illusionary nature of the world that we perceive to be our provisional reality. Our perception does not have the ability to change the fact that all of our experiences actually assist in our realignment with the truth. What we perceive to be bad or evil is merely an incorrect judgment that has no impact on the experience's true purpose. The second concept defined in this lesson is an idea of oneness. This term has been used often throughout the lessons and notes, yet it has not necessarily been defined. Oneness is simply the idea that God is, and in God's being, God encompasses all things. No mind holds anything but God. God is, and nothing else is. God is not aware of something that is not itself, because all is united with its source, and like its source, it merely is. Oneness is the total recognition that the will of God has been completely given and received in every mind. Oneness that returns the mind to the ever-present. Oneness. In oneness, the Son of God has returned to the Father, and the Father has returned to the Son. We say, God is, and we cease to speak, for words would only support the idea of separation, for to define is to limit. Words like Father, God's Son, the Holy Spirit, Christ, and the big S self, and the higher self, all become synonymous with God, since there is only a oneness of all that is. Although our split mind cannot understand the abstract idea of a oneness, perhaps it would be helpful to look upon the mind of God as holographic in nature. In a true hologram, all parts contain the whole, and the whole is contained in all parts. This recognition of our oneness with the mind of God will arrive when we fully accept and recognize that the will of God is our will. Forgiveness is the central theme in salvation and holds all the parts together in meaningful relationships. Forgiveness is in the realm of time. Time provides a game board for differentiation and separation that has become our apparent provisional reality. It is this provisional reality that provides a seeming or illusionary world of hate and fear that will disappear with our acceptance of grace. Earlier, we said that in time, forgiveness is the idea that I forgive my brother for all the things I thought he had done to harm me, but that never really happened. This definition of forgiveness is the acknowledgement that nothing sources your experience but yourself. and that nothing can rob you of your inner peace unless you choose to allow it. Forgiveness leads to the abandonment of our belief in time as we realize that all learning has never been lost, and we remain as God created us. We accept and share that realization with all minds, so that each mind will be open to revelation for themselves and be released from time. Forgiveness and grace are intertwined and lead to our acceptance that we merely make a journey in time that was already done, and that oneness is our true reality. When grace is an aspect of the love of God which is most like the state prevailing in the unity of truth. The whole lesson starts out with that line. It's the world's most lofty aspiration, for it leads beyond the world entirely. For true acceptance. Grace becomes inevitable, instant, in those who have prepared a table where it can be gently laid and willingly received. an altar clean and holy for the gift. Let's take a nice deep breath and welcome in the grace of God with each deep breath in. I inhale deeply in, breathing in the grace. Hold that breath softly in your lungs. Let the grace come in, and then release that air. Let that go. And ready yourself to take a nice deep breath in after you've let all that air out. Breathe in deeply, a nice cool, deep breath of grace. Every breath of life that sustains you, every drink of water that fulfills you, and every bite of food that energizes you, all gather up and contribute to the grace of God. Our lives are enveloped in the grace of God. So let's keep our altar clean and ready for the gift. Grace is acceptance of the love of God within a world of seeming hate and fear. By grace alone, the hate and fear are gone. For grace presents an opportunity for attaining a state so opposite to everything the world contains that those whose minds are lighted by the gift of grace cannot believe the world of fear is real. Grace is not learned. We take that call to awaken. We open our minds up minute by minute to live in the present and do as we're guided gently at our request. Our minds are not shut tight against God's voice. We've become aware that there are things that we don't know, making ourselves ready to accept a state completely different from the experience that our eyes show us, that our ears hear, that we touch. We have perhaps appeared to contradict our statement that the revelation of the Father and the Son as one has already been set. But we've also said that the mind determines what the time will be and has determined it. And yet we urge you to bear witness to the Word of God, to hasten the experience of truth and speed its advent into every mind which recognizes its effects on you. Oneness is simply the idea that God is, and His being in his being. He encompasses all things. No mind holds anything but him. We say, God is. Then we cease to speak. For in that knowledge, words are meaningless. There are no lips to speak them, and no part of mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. It has united with its source, and like the source itself, it merely is. We cannot speak, nor write, nor even think this at all. It comes to every mind when total recognition that its will is God's and has been completely given and received completely. It returns the mind into the endless present, where past and future cannot be conceived. It lies beyond salvation, past all thought of time, forgiveness, and the holy face of Christ. The Son of God has merely disappeared into his Father, and his Father has in him. The world has never been at all. Eternity remains a constant state. This is beyond experience we try to hasten. Yet forgiveness taught and learned brings with it the experiences which bear witness that the time the mind itself determined to abandon all, but this is near at hand. We do not hasten it in what you will offer. We do not hasten it in that what you will offer was concealed from him who teaches what forgiveness means. All learning was already in his mind, accomplished and complete. He recognized all that time holds and gave it to all minds, that each one might determine from a point where time has ended, when it is released to revelation and eternity. We have repeated several times before that you but make a journey that is done. For oneness must be here, whatever time the mind has set for revelation is entirely irrelevant to what must be a constant state, forever as it always was, forever to remain as it is now. We merely take part. We merely take the part assigned long since and fully recognized as perfectly fulfilled by him who wrote salvation's script in his Creator's name and in the name of his Creator's Son. There is no need to further clarify what no one in the world can understand. When revelation of your oneness comes, It will be known and fully understood. Now we have work to do, for those in time can speak of things beyond and listen to words which explain what is to come is past already. Yet what meaning can the words convey to those who still count the hours and rise and work and go to sleep by them? Suffice it then that you have work to do to play your part. The ending must remain obscure to you until your part is done. It does not matter, for your part is still what all the rest depends on. As you play the role assigned to you, salvation comes a little nearer. Each uncertain heart that does not beat as yet in tune with God. Forgiveness is the central theme which runs through salvation, folding all of its parts in meaningful relationships. The course it runs, directed, and its outcome sure. And now we ask for grace, the final forgiveness can. And now we ask for grace, the final gift forgiveness can bestow. Experience that grace provides will end in time, for grace foreshadows heaven, yet does not replace the thought of time, but for a little while. That interval suffices. It's here that miracles are laid, to be returned by you from holy instance. You receive through grace in your experience to all that see the light that lingers on your face. We can give in the grace that has been given us. Our learning goal today does not exceed this prayer. Yet in the world, what could be more than what we ask this day of Him who gives the grace we ask as it was given Him? By grace I live, by grace I'm released. By grace I give, by grace I will release. This whole meditation was the reading of Lesson 169. today, stay in this moment. Stay with the grace of God. Let it guide you right back into the light, moment by moment. Stay with the present. Come back into your body. Let's get ready for our day. It's a few minutes after 7 a.m. here on the East Coast. I'm ready for a really great day. I've got a strong week to finish so I can take a vacation next week and go down and see Dad for July 4th. Next week.
Woohoo!
I'm excited about that. I think there's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know where Janine is, but we're going to try and stop and see her on the way down if we can. We'll see this weekend. There are a lot of great footnotes in this lesson in the Purple Book. And by a lot of footnotes, I mean there's more than 11 for this one, so I guess it's pretty big compared to a lot of the other ones. And as I've gone through these, one specific area that popped out to me over and over and over again, and I love this part of the lesson, the singularity of God as represented from the phrase God is. There's a whole cameo in the back of the Purple Book about it, like this essay that they wrote when they were writing the Purple Book, Circle of Atonement group. And it's a lovely one. And the key in there is to read God is and then not say anything as long as you can. It's hard to do here. It's hard to do here in Clubhouse. But that was a wonderful meditation for me for a month or so. It was God is, and that was the meditation, and I could stay silent for it too. It's pretty amazing. Something came through me with that phrase. God just is. And then there's another little part of this that's jumped out at me. It's my lucky number, 337. My part refers to my role in the salvation of the world, my special function, my little part of God, how I represent my aspect. That's the part of me that refers to the world. The way the notes came together just was kind of magical to me, that bottom of that page. And so this was a great lesson for me. I hope it was great for you guys too. This is just one of my favorites, and I really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Let us know what you think.
It's funny. You said God is, and then the statement was just, you don't have to say anything else. And you don't. But the actual evidence of grace in our lives every day, which continues and grows, is because of what it is, grace. Grace is something we can't learn, we can't earn, we can't even teach. We can kind of stumble and talk about it. But the one thing Lee doesn't have to say, and hasn't said, but I'll say, is that that's the name of his first and only daughter, Grace. And for that meaning, for that reason, the word itself attracted Lee to it. And what he received was a really special kind of blessing, a blessing that doesn't have anything that you can pin on it. You can't pin something to grace. It's like trying to pin a note on a bubble. You can't. The bubble is there. You enjoy it. It's always there if you look for it. But it's a special feeling that all the stuff that's in this world today, and when this book was written originally, we had some troubles back in the 60s. I remember them. But the world has bigger troubles today, bigger fears. The world has gone on in a momentum developed by the lies and the hate and the battles of wills and all of those things. The beauty of this notion of grace, the singular most important gift of God, is that we can live even in this world with a peacefulness that is beyond our understanding and is beyond the understanding of other people who would seek to tell us, you guys are on some magical trip here. Grace is real as Lee's daughter. Grace is very real in that we can continue to exist no matter all the slings and arrows, as Shakespeare said, that may be hurled at us. Doesn't matter, because we have received grace. Can we explain it? Nope. You can't explain something that was revealed to you by another, a bigger source. And it's simply the biggest source of truth that can bestow the grace on us to say, in a sense, I've got it all covered for you. Bob, Lee, Adriana, Tom, everybody here. Morgana, Louisa, Sanaz, Carolyn. Who'd I miss? I got everybody. That grace is here. All we have to do is accept it. And it will grow and grow and give us the peace that we have always looked for. Even while we thought we were looking for something else, this will supersede it all. It's the finest gift that God gives us. Who could ask for more than that? So, Lee, that explains to me clearly why this means so much. Tom?
Yeah, lesson 180 is a summary lesson. Remember, the general theme is God is but love, and therefore so am I. Lesson 169 said, by grace I live, by grace I am released. Grace is the ability to see the love of God in a seeming world of fear. The lesson 170 is, there is no cruelty in God, and therefore there is none in me, because our source is God, and God gives all to all. So what God is, we must be. Grace gives us the ability as a decision maker to make the decision or go with the assumption that actually there's only two possibilities. God, if God is either cruel or God is not cruel. And that's what 170 is really saying. God is only love. God cannot be cruel. There would be no cruelty, especially in the way that we define God as a God of unconditional love, who does not condemn, does not have to forgive us for anything, because he realizes that there is no separation, that we're just an individuated aspect of the one self, and that we're on a journey that's already over to reawaken us as to our true spiritual identity. God, and what grace really gives us is the ability to say, if God is unconditional love, which is what all the great religions say in their mystical traditions, not necessarily in the religious overlays that the churches have put in. But if you go to all their mystical traditions, they all say the same thing. They say God is everything, God is only love, and God is this unconditional love, and that we are part of that one self. All the mystical traditions come back to that unity of the oneness. Grace gives us the ability to just, and we talked a little bit about axioms and syllogisms a couple of lessons ago. An axiom is something that's just assumed to be true. It doesn't necessarily require any proof because a lot of times there's no way to prove something. In time and space, which is the illusion of separation, we have the appearance of two basic ideas that we could assume to be our reality or how we're going to pivot off of our thought system. One is the idea that God made us, like begets like, and therefore, if God is only love, we must be only love. And therefore, the assumption there is, and this is what the Course in Miracles says, that God created us as an extension of itself, part of the oneness of all, that we're perfect, whole, and complete. The other possibility, which is again an assumption, and if we understand how the mind works, when we make an assumption, we just continue to follow through. And those, since time and space is influenced by our beliefs, if we start off a different assumption, we'll get different results. We'll call into our awareness different ideas. The other possibility is God is either love or God is not unconditional love. If God's not unconditional love, then maybe God did not create me perfect, whole, and complete, which means, and this is what 170 is, there's no cruelty in God. If God didn't create us perfect, whole, and complete, he would be cruel. The Course in Miracles says God did not create our world of perception. We, on a mass collective consciousness basis, created that. Okay. Grace gives us the ability to just assume, or as an axiom for our whole thought system, to pivot off the idea that God is only love and therefore so am I. God gives us the grace to accept the truth that there is no cruelty in God, therefore there is no cruelty in me, therefore I must be, as God created me, perfect, whole, and complete. And that's the one decision that we need to decide. Either God made us perfect, whole, and complete, or he didn't. Once we realize that I am not a body, I am free, I am still as God created me, nothing can rob me of my own inner peace unless I choose it, because God has given us the free will to imagine whatever we want, realizing that we can either imagine the false and play on this game board of separation, which is what we've chosen to do. And ultimately, the Holy Spirit, the plan, will require us to eventually reawaken to the truth of what we really are, to accept that truth. And that's what grace will do. It'll ultimately allow us to accept that truth, that we are as God created us. And when we do that, we usher in the end of time. We start seeing things differently. We start seeing that this world is our play school, which allows us to demonstrate and be what we truly are. We can imagine that we're something else, but ultimately we must reawaken to the truth of what we really are. So these lessons are all intertwined, but these two here, grace gives me the truth that I am as God created me, perfect, whole, and complete. And since God is not cruel, how he created me must be that. And that if I experience anything else, that cannot be the truth. That's got to be the false assumption that pivots off the idea that somewhere I either lost that perfection, I sinned, which is the belief that I could be separate or that I could lack, and that is us again forgetting to laugh and taking this game board seriously and thinking that it could cause either God to cease the flow of his unconditional love, which would be impossible. His unconditional love just flows, it's not earned, or it says that we somehow have offended God, we've sinned, and that we now have to earn our right. So grace just allows us to accept the truth and realize that nothing can change our reality. And it says in that lesson on grace that as you accept that for your reality, you will be given personal revelations or experiences that will help confirm that idea of the oneness that you are as God created you. And on some of these meditations, we're trying to bring you to that uh, experience of that oneness. And so you as a decision maker today have the decision to make. And it's basically accept the love of God and accept that you are perfect, whole, and complete. And if that's the case, you can go about this world of seeming hate and fear and know that its purpose is to help reawaken sleeping minds to their spiritual magnificence. In time and space, your function is forgiveness. The idea that we could somehow, this dream world, this illusion could cause us to be harmed. So we're forgiving that idea, realizing that this is just our learning NASA flight simulator to reawaken to the truth. And our function is forgiveness, our purpose is love, because God is only love, and therefore so am I. And our destiny is the peace of God, because there is no cruelty in God, and therefore there is none in you. You remain as God created you, perfect, whole, and complete. And that's the decision that I'd like you to make today, to accept the grace of God and go about your world, how you interact with it today, with the idea that you, that there is no cruelty in God. We're all on our own perfect path of a reawakening, and we're all destined because of our divine birthright, our spiritual DNA. We must reawaken. And we've spoken on this idea in the past about the idea that time is a journey that's already been completed. It's just where do we wish to place our attention? Today, realize that God is only love, and so are you. Accept the love of the grace of God, for as it says, by grace I live, by grace I am released, and know that there is no cruelty in God. Therefore, there's no cruelty in you. You are as God is, unconditional love. You're perfect, whole, and complete part of that oneness of all. Thank you.
That was great, Tom. And I want to look at what you just said from just another point of view. It doesn't change what you said, just a different way of looking at that. If we go back to the story of the Garden of Eden, we all know the story. We made a decision by eating, we just say in the sense of representing the human being or the human mind, so I can put myself right there, so to speak. We made a decision that I can make a decision to think otherwise. And the only thing I have to do is let that decision go. Because we decided to eat the apple. We didn't know exactly why God thought it not in our best interest to eat it, but it opened up the possibility of knowing things that were opposed to other things, and that there was a possibility that we could decide for one or the other. That was the thing that messed us up. So, if that was the thing that messed us up, how do we get out of it? It's really simple once we understand the things Tom just said, or the things the book is saying, that there is no otherwise. There's no need to think otherwise. Thinking otherwise from grace, other than grace, is what puts us into a crappy world. And returning back to the one thing we had in the beginning before we even considered that there was another way. And that's what the Bible is all about. Here's what happens when you try thinking that you can decide to do other than everything here that's been given to you. Everything you need is right here, and you want to think for some reason that there's something else, and you have the right to go seek that. Well, you got the right. You went out from the Garden of Eden and you checked out all this other stuff, and look where it got you. The amazing thing is, grace has always been here. It's still here. It will always be here because it is timeless. It's not tagged to any particular moment where it becomes real, but not in other times. It's always available to us. And the only decision we have to do is to stop making decisions for otherness, to let it go, and to be one with God, one with grace, and to enjoy the life that God intended for us all. It's the reason that these two lessons, 169 and 170, have so much meaning and are so powerful as we contemplate coming back to the oneness that always was, before time, beyond time, after time is gone. It all doesn't matter. It's the grace in which we live. It's that sureness that it doesn't matter what we did. It's all forgiven. It doesn't matter what they did. It's all forgiven. That's a state of grace. And it doesn't get any better. Those are my thoughts for today. Thanks.
Yeah, just in regards to that Genesis story, they mentioned two trees, tree of knowledge and the tree of good and evil. And God says, to Adam and Eve, you could eat of any of the trees, but I wouldn't suggest you eat of the tree of good and evil. The tree of good and evil is really a symbol for the idea that you want to judge things as either good or bad. And when you judge things, you make them real. The Course in Miracles said that there's nothing wrong with playing in the play school of time and space with the idea of that there's the possibility of fear and there's the possibility of love. It's a good learning place, a good learning place where you can understand what love truly is, because it's often beneficial uh, when you're trying to learn something to become aware of its opposite. Uh, there's the idea of light and darkness, black, white. Knowing the differences helps us know what, love really is if we have some notion of fear. The course where God said, but don't eat of the tree of good and evil, because then you start judging things and you make those things real in your mind. The only reason to judge things is because you think that something outside of yourself can cause you to lose your inner peace or can make you happy. And that is when we forget to laugh. We take this play school too seriously and we slip into judgment. So there's nothing wrong with playing here. There's no blame, shame, or guilt that's needed to be brought upon us unless we make it so in our own mind. So I always talk about the law of karma, that you're the keeper of your own karma keys. But there's this idea of judgment, the idea of deciding something is good or evil. That's was what we were told we should not take in, because whenever you eat of the fruit, you take it in to your own mind, and that becomes a part of you. God was just saying, don't judge. Uh, you'll be okay. Take anything you want, but don't, whenever you have these experiences, have the experience, gain the learning lesson, but don't take it too seriously so that you think it can change what you really are. And this journey is just reawakening to the truth that we remain as God created us. And that's all. And that's that acceptance of the grace of God is the realization that God is only love, even in this world of seeming hate and fear, this illusion, and not taking it seriously. Thank you.
Tom, this is a lot of fun. I don't know if anyone down down in the audience wants to come up and play what we're doing, because it's now I'm thinking from what you just said, it's like we're playing, we're in this Garden of Eden, right? It's nice and warm. We don't even need clothes. We have all the food we need. Even if we cut ourselves, the agriculture has things that will heal them, everything we need. And now we've just decided to play a game, and the game is called What Would Happen If There Were Evil? Because there wasn't any. So we use this imagination. And you know what we get with that? Oh my God. Look at all the movies now. They're getting better and better at making Tyrannosaurus Rexes and look real. And all of this stuff to create a monster here and an evil man there and a thief here and all this stuff was just like picking a card in a game. Let's see what would happen if there was this thing that they call evil. What could that be like? And that's where all the people in LA, Beverly Hills, and making all the movies, they are playing different roles for us to look at to say, oh, this is what would happen with evil. That's what would happen with evil. And what we never consider is, let's stop playing that game. Let's get back to what was originally given to us, and let's stop playing that game, because that game is the only reason that we have, and this is not against movies by any means, but you may have noticed most of them have these incredible monsters, and each one is getting better and better at making monsters look more and more real. And when is the world going to end? It's going to end by Tuesday if you don't push a certain button or disconnect a wire. Thank God for MacGyver. He's there to fix this problem and that problem. We create all the problems that we experience. And that doesn't mean that we're evil. We are playing a game. But it seems like in the mind that, well, I couldn't have thought that evil thought. It was pushed on me. Somebody gaslighted me. And all of these things that we give as excuses for thinking something other than pure life of grace. We are all entitled to it. We already are in it. If we simply remember that it is a game, which is one of Tom's repeating thoughts over and over and over. It's all a game. Go into the movie if you want to see the latest thing that all the marvelous Marvel people can do magically. All of this stuff. Some have to be magical. They all like to be able to fly now, so they can imagine that one way or the other. But they just kind of jump high, but their high is really high. The whole point of all of this is just the wonderful wonderment of why in the world did we even pick up that game to play? And when we're tired of it, we can sit back, close it up, and just live a state of grace and accept that as our given reality that we couldn't even take away if we wanted to. We can ignore it, but it's always there, forever, beyond time. This is a good example of why we go back and read it more than once or twice, because seeing it now, after having studied these things for a while, we can realize, because we have learned so much already, that there really is a state of grace. When you're down in the pits and you're afraid to go out of your house because someone's going to shoot you, you can't really sit back and think about grace easily. So you have to study and learn the many aspects of God, and eventually it dawns on every one of us this incredible grace that God gave us before time began. Doesn't get much better, folks. Doesn't get much better. And I'm going to be seeing my granddaughter named Grace in just a few more days, and I'm very excited about that. Very excited about Lee and Adriana coming down here. And what could be more graceful than that? That's it. That's it.
All right. Well, I can gracefully wrap it up. Unless anybody down below is interested, give you guys a quick chance. I'll just throw out the invitation here to speak. We're here every single day reading our lesson. Love that you came and shared some time with us. If you got anything you'd love to add, that'd be welcome. But it's summertime, it's hump day. Gonna go have a great day. I hope you guys will too. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Hump day. I'm going to leave quietly. Namaste, everyone. Namaste.
That was fun. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Have a great day. Namaste.